watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is the programme where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of property experts. And joining me today are Tony Gimple, MD and founder of Brand Entrepreneur, Private Rental Sector Commentators. Welcome to you, Tony.
Hi man, good to be here.
And on your left is Cam Dovedi, founder of Premier Property Group, Investors and Mentors. Welcome to you, Cam.
Hi, Steve.
Right, okay, well, on with the questions. I hope you two guys are ready to impart your knowledge. So Cam, first of all, high levels of rental activity are being reported right across the country. Do the panel think this is a move to the long predicted, I suppose, trend towards the European way of thinking, i.e. that it's not all important for the younger generation to own property as opposed to renting? Or is this perhaps a warning shot to developers and indeed the government to suggest that housing construction costs are simply too high and the purchase funding too restrictive in terms of high deposits? Well, there you go. That'll keep you going for a few minutes.
Well, to be fair, that question is absolutely true. The first part, what we're finding is rents are increasing across the country. Now, they're not increasing everywhere. They're increasing in areas where are investor areas. So we call this momentum investing. So these are strategic areas where people are investing for high yields, etc. So those areas are increasing in rental. In fact, there's a report that has come out this month from HomeTrack, where it's actually showing you key data showing rental increases and how rentals have actually reduced in London and cities like London. However, they're now bouncing back. And across, if we take the London out of the equation, you also find that rentals are increasing across a country in areas that you wouldn't expect the rentals to increase. And that could be because of the infrastructure going in. That could be because of the new ways that we're working. So more people migrating into satellite towns outside of large cities. So that is actually happening. That is a fact. Now, the second question about people not being able to rent, I personally find that quite sad. I think it's getting much more difficult for the younger generation to be getting onto the property ladder, which is quite sad because look at what we're doing. Why are we sitting here? We're sitting here because we've been able to build a portfolio. We're sitting here because we've created a pension through property, able to gain capital gain, etc., etc. That's why we're here. But for the new generation, that's going to be tough. And I personally find that quite sad, like what I say. However, people can still learn to become momentum investors. If you treat property as a business, you can still get onto the property ladder. There's so many things that you can do which aren't written out there. So, experience, people sharing experience can show you how to do that. That's for sure. So, although it's quite sad that people can't get onto the property ladder, at the same time, there are opportunities where people can choose to learn to treat it like a business and get onto the property ladder. Going forward, are we going through to sort of the European scenario, the German scenario, etc.? It looks like it's being drummed into people, isn't it? But I think people like us will always find a way to navigate through it, and I think people can.
I'm quite interested to understand what drives the rise in prices and the attractiveness of investing in certain areas. I mean, if we go back historically in London, I mean, the classic one was Mayfair and Marylebone. You've got Oxford Street dividing the two. So people would walk around Marylebone and say, do you know what? This is only 2 minutes from Mayfair and it's 20-30% cheaper. Wow. So everybody goes zooming into Marylebone. Prices go up. And all of a sudden, everybody says, do you know what? It's only across the road to Mayfair and they're about the same price now. So everybody migrates from Marylebone into Mayfair and the Mayfair prices start shooting up. And are we not finding this sort of scenario with, okay, well, I can no longer afford to invest in London because the yields are so low. So let's go to Birmingham or to Manchester or Nottingham or somewhere. I mean, is that the driver?
So that's one of the drivers. So let's discuss London specifically. So these sort of prime areas in London, like Mayfair and so on, what we're finding is, and it's a fact, you can look at lots of, plenty of funding coming in from foreign investors
Sure, yeah.
who understand that we have a safe and secure political system, allegedly, right? And we have a safe and secure, but
it would be safer to say we've got better property law.
yes,
rather
yeah,
than...
we have a safe and secure we do. I mean, jesting to one side, we do have a safe, secure political system, and you only got to look at other countries out there. And also, we do have a safe and secure system when it comes to the conveyancing side of things. Your title is your title. No one's going to scrub it off and say it's not your title. It's confirmed. So we have all of that in the country. Hence, people, investors see our country as a safe haven, don't they? Right? That's why they're investing here, and that money's pumping in, which is gonna always. My view is it's always gonna fuel London. We might have dips and so on, but it always comes back as it is right now. Like what I mentioned, Home Track shows proof of that. Now, the second part of this is people like us, where they're investors, they're momentum investing, and what we're finding in what we call this is the gold mining areas. So the gold mining areas, specific areas where investment is going into, infrastructure is there also, and there is a huge demand and there isn't enough supply. Even though we're building, our target is around 300,000 new homes, isn't it? We're nowhere near that. So there is a massive demand, ain't enough supply, and of course it's a supply and demand scenario, and that's there.
I always want to know when the government say we're going to build 200 or 300,000, who's we? Who's actually going to do the building? I'm not really sure.
Well, people like us watching people like our people watching this right now, people like us. And the third one is the local housing allowance system, which is brilliant when it comes to making sure that someone has a home. So no matter who you are in this country, we know that you can have a home, right? So that local housing allowance system really serves a purpose, from my point of view, and it makes sure that there's housing there. And as investors, of course, you're creating a business and you're providing that housing stock. So you actually, whether you want to help people like us or whether you don't want to help people like us, you can't but help people and make money from this. And ain't that a beautiful way to live?
Very good. And on that note, Tony, we'll go to your question.
Okay.
Right, we've touched on this in previous programmes, Tony. It's another sort of limited company question. Could the panel please explain the differences on taxation on profits and allowances for both profit and loss when considering whether to buy to let business being created should be in a limited company or run simply as a personal enterprise? I know you've said before that this is a very complex situation, and it's not that easy to answer in a sentence, is it?
Okay. Limited companies can deduct a wider range of expenses, and that gets to a point. So you've got gross profit, and then you'll pay tax, corporation tax, and then ultimately you draw money out. You'll pay income tax and other variations upon the theme. It tends to boil down to, I won't say a zero-sum game, but without the raw numbers going in, is it one's own sole business or that other businesses? Are you employed elsewhere? Different sources of income. It truly is an impossible question to answer.
Tony, let me ask you something. It's a long time since I've sort of actually been involved in this, but I seem to remember at one time you could, and this is going to the end game of your exit, which is an important factor, as again we've discussed before. So you get to the end with a limited company. There used to be a sort of allowance. Was it entrepreneurs allowance or something? You could close the company down and take your money out at a relatively low rate. Does that still exist?
Okay, so you'd sell the business, you'd sell the shares in the business, and either there's reduction in stamp duty, because you're selling the shares, not the underlying properties, right. And the capital gains tax was effectively 10%, as opposed to the full-blown personal rates.
Right.
So you can get entrepreneurs relief when selling a company. but you've got other issues.
But hold on, can I just clarify there? I seem to also remember that there's some kind of stipulation if the company had property that wasn't possible, but if it had cash it was. Am I right, or have I got that the wrong way around?
Okay. You're getting into percentages. You know, what type of company was it? Was it a trading business? Was it an investment company? Was it mixed?
Or they should tell you why I'm not an accountant.
And neither am I, thankfully. I just speak about it on behalf of them at times. Okay, so it's all about, you know, looking at the motivation behind the question again. When you're going into property, be it, you know, first time out or with an existing portfolio, you really have to work out where you're going to go and why, and from there you get the right power team, which includes the lawyers, the accountants, the mentors, the trainers, the agents, the sources, and then you can start to put together a picture.
Okay, so same ethos really. Get a good set of accountants behind you, get good advisors around you, and make your decisions for the longer term, not just for today.
Get a good team around you, not just the accountants.
Okay, well, that's all we've got time for in this half of the show, so join me again after the break.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm sitting here today with Cam Dovedi and Tony Gimple answering your questions. So Cam, your second question is, and you're going to love this one, I've always been interested in property and have built up a reasonable portfolio of buy-to-let and HMO properties and run this business alongside my normal employment. I have thought of setting up a property training business to pass on my knowledge gained and perhaps replace my day job with this in time. The question is, am I responsible in any way if by encouraging people to enter the property market on the lines that I suggest, am I in any way responsible financially for their success or, more importantly, their failure? Whoa.
Well, I would say you're responsible for more than that.
Okay.
You're actually responsible for being honest with what you're delivering. And the way that I would suggest that people do this, is just my point of view, is only share what you're actually doing. So no point you doing it 12 years ago, you need to be doing it now, because the people that connect with you, they trust you and they're trusting the information they're giving. And usually they don't know the difference between information that just sounds good and information that actually really works. So if you can be the person that is coming from your experience of doing what you're doing, well then good for you, that's your responsibility. Now, whether they get results or don't get results, that's on them, not on you. I've learned this the hard way, because you can take a lot of pressure on when you really care about people and you want to help them to get results, but you can't force someone into taking action. Yeah, you can share with them what to do, you can help them and assist them, but ultimately they've got to take action. And provided they are taking action and you're sharing honestly what you're doing with your systems and processes, etc., then they are going to get results. Very difficult not to get results. So that would be the responsibility side of things. I'm sharing that. Secondly, you know, in my experience, when it comes to trainings, it's not that easy to actually train people properly. What people don't see behind the background is the effort and the time that goes into that to actually train people properly. And if you're training people properly, it's actually a loss leader, because that time invested, any wealthy person who knows what they're doing can make that money from the actual deals done rather than training people. However, you can make it your balanced approach to life. So if I'm allowed to say, that's what I do, because I make my money from property. However, as a balanced approach, my view is I've done this for myself, my family, and I continue to do that. I'm not good at a lot of things, but people keep telling me I'm good at this. So why not share that with other people so they can do it for themselves as well? It's a balanced approach. For that reason, actually, I don't do a lot of, we don't actually do a lot of trainings. We're more on the investing, developing side. But like I say, it does nurture your soul, and why not? Why shouldn't you?
We do get a lot of questions asking how you identify a good property trainer. I mean, we've all seen the adverts on the internet that say, "Oh, make yourself millions overnight. Come on our, half a day course and learn how to do it." And of course, these are just aspirational dreams, aren't they? That are not really going to come to fruition, I think.
Yeah, they're dreams, but you can set a goal to a dream, and you can take practical steps to that goal. So my suggestion would be is firstly check out whoever you want to be dealing with. Spend a little bit of time with them. So if it's a half a day training or day training or a couple of days, whatever it is, check them out. What is, no one's a fool. You get a sense of that person. You get a sense of what they're doing. Secondly, look for proof. Look for proof. Look for case studies. Look for addresses. Look for actual projects done. When were those projects done? Were they 15 years ago, or are they very recent, like now? Look for all of that. Ask for that. Ask for proof.
Well, it's the same as appointing a builder, isn't it? What would you do if you appoint a builder? You say, "Show me something you've done."
Exactly.
It's easy, isn't it?
Exactly. So you look for that. And thirdly, I would say if it's training, then also look for accreditations. So, for example, continued professional development. Do the trainings have continued professional development? Trust me, very difficult to get that. There's a whole scrutinized process to get that. So if you can look for accreditations like that, then that also helps to understand that the people that you're dealing with are the organisation you're dealing with, company is good.
Yes, I also think, Cam, I don't know whether you agree with this or not. My feeling is that it's very important to look at yourself in these situations. There are a lot of people who would like to go into business, but are not really suitable for business. They're not people that are prepared to make sometimes very difficult, sometimes very harsh and very practical decisions, and would shy away from that kind of decision making. And these people are going to get in trouble if they enter into a business where, it's not all milk and honey. I've lost money on property before. There is no God-given right to make money just because you're in the property business.
Well, Stephen, I come from that background. Yeah, I come from a very working class background, and if someone said to me, "Cam, you're going to be doing, multi-million pound projects and buying 12 to 17 projects per month," and I wouldn't have believed him. But it's the truth. So my point is, someone's got to start somewhere, and the first thing is to get belief into somebody. Believe in someone, believe in something, start that process, and then, in my experience, the belief in yourself starts to grow. And you're quite right. I mean, people will share with experience, not what's been wonderful. What they're actually sharing is how they got stuff wrong, learned from it very painfully, and then from that built a system which anyone can implement so much faster. That's the whole point, isn't it?
I think there's a lot of credibility in that saying, is learn from other people's mistakes.
100%.
I think it's a high value there. What do you think, Tony?
Absolutely. There are thankfully fewer and fewer rogue trainers out there. There are more and more people going for professional accreditation. Does the trainer, mentor, whatever label you want to put on it, have a liability in law for the failure or success of an individual? If I was still working in law, I'd perhaps want to argue the toss over that one. But ultimately, there is a duty of care on both parts. One, on the person attending the course, to really understand what it is they, as an individual, are trying to achieve and have the means, motive, and opportunity. And then there's a duty of care, moral obligation, if you like, on the trainer to deliver in line with what can be achieved, given their experience and an individual's. And as Cam rightly said, you don't tend to actually make the money from the courses themselves. It's all about providing a little bit of motivation, aspiration, and putting as many people off almost as you can. Because no matter whether you're going to be a developer, whether you're going to be a landlord, whichever way you look at it, tenants and toilets are hard work. Being a site manager is hard work, and it is not right for everyone.
For everyone, no. No.
So, yeah.
Okay, great, gents. Good answers. Thank you for that. Tony, your second question. I have a buy-to-let business which I run alongside another business, which is a retail shop. During COVID, I've had to close my shop and undertake all my work from home. As I was using my home for all of my business activities for the last year, can I claim any form of enhanced expense allowance for this?
Sorry, he's shut down his retail shop?
His retail shop is closed, so he's moved his business activities, whatever they may be, to home.
Well, hang on a second.
And I think you're normally allowed an allowance for your time at home, aren't you?
Well, your time working in the business is your opportunity cost. You can claim a proportion of your telephone, internet,
Yes. Yeah.
all of the usual things.
But it's quite a small allowance, isn't it?
Okay, so look, primarily I work from home,
Right.
and even before lockdown, I primarily work from home because I'm a career sociopath. I only mix with people because I have to.
Right.
Right. So,
You're not just grumpy like me and just don't want to meet people.
well, there's that as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But but from time to time, I will travel outside Canary Wharf. I like certain people I can mention.
Okay.
However, if he's running a property business, say, or she, or whatever, is running a property business, then a rental business, then they would have been running that from the home anyway. So there are the expenses are the expenses. Get good advice. Work with somebody who really understands the sector. Look at what other things you can offset. But if you're using all the bulk of 90% of your home telephone to make calls for business purposes, then you can claim what you're actually doing, what you're spending. Is there any great enhancement in it? No.
I mean, you can't sort of theoretically pay yourself a part of rent for your business taking up space at home.
It's going to be benefit in kind because you probably own the property or got a mortgage on the property. It becomes a bit of a circular argument.
I was just going to say it's just never-ending circle, isn't it? Really?
You'll probably end up spending more in fees trying to work out the right way to do it. It's like the conversation we were having in reception. Why on earth are you going to spend £1 to save 40 pence in tax? It's
just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. The maths doesn't work.
Okay. No. You got any comment on that, Cam?
So there are some tangible expenses in a property business, as Tony mentions, right? So, for example, telephone. You can also claim for things like, obviously check with your accountant, but you can claim for things like travel. If you're going into an area and you're active in the property business, so for example, one of our areas is 200 miles from where I live. So that travel is, I'm not going there for a jolly. I'm going there to actually go and visit properties, meet letting agents. So that's a honest expense, right?
Yeah.
So you can claim for that. While we're there, you gotta eat food. So you got your subsistence, which you can claim for. So all your expenses like that are absolutely deductible. Things that are going to be in your continued professional development. So learning materials, etc. Provided it's continued professional development, are things that you can also claim for. You might need to have a conversation with your accountant about that one. Explain that it's not investing; it's continued professional development in your career because you've chosen a career. Okay. And then they are excellent. So there's various things like that. So there's a few there.
Okay, great stuff. Gents, that's all we've got time for. So Tony Gimple, Cam Dovedi, thank you very much for coming in today and answering the questions. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time.